Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Over the next hour, we're talking all New Orleans Pelicans. Pelicans will be selecting first and fourth overall in the NBA draft on Thursday night. This show is being recorded on the day before, on Wednesday. But we'll give you some great information, nevertheless, to get you ready, or again, so you can go back and look and see how right our guests were and how right the host was at the end of the day. I think we're going to be pretty spot on before it's all said and done. We got a great crew, as always. To break it down for you, Oleh Kosel of the Bird Rights and David Grubbs of CrescentCitySports.com join me tonight. Guys, welcome. If you would, as always, welcome first. Tell the folks a little bit about what you guys are kind of double team now.
I know. We're used to this.
I mean, not just you guys on my show, but you guys, you're on the Bird calls now, Dave. Y'all are going back and forth. So again, they have a collaborative effort going on at the Bird Rights between Dave and also all the guys over at the Bird Rights as well. Tell us a little bit about it, Ollie, if you would.
Sure. We're a good collection of 15 writers. Plus, we've gotten really into podcasts. So anything you guys need, news, analysis, we're there to break it down. As of course, this has been one heck of an exciting off season. So we've been churning out articles, podcasts daily.
Yeah. And, of course, the best way to catch you guys is?
Absolutely. At SB Nation, www.thebirdrights.com. It's all one word. And you can also catch us on social media. We're a pretty good presence over there, both on Facebook and on Twitter.
And the podcasts are every format. Wherever you go to listen to podcasts, the Bird Calls is there.
Yeah, beautiful. Y'all do a great job with the podcast as well. David, welcome back. CrescentCitySports.com. Tell us about it. And you had a great announcement as well for our audience tonight.
Yes. Besides all the things that I've been doing with Ollie and with Crescent City Sports, I'm really happy to announce that I'll be joining you over at Sports 1280 in August with my own morning drive time show from 8 to 10 every morning. Hard in the Paint with David Grubbs. So I'm really excited.
Congratulations.
I'm really excited about that.
Well deserved. And of course, you'll cover it all. You'll cover
everything.
Football, basketball,
yes,
everything it is. Adds another local voice here. And again, congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
We are looking forward to it as well. No doubt about it. Congratulations. Let's get started. And I guess the big story we start with, not the draft, even though it is the day before the draft. We got to kind of rewind a bit and go back to Saturday afternoon as the New Orleans Pelicans trade Anthony Davis to the Los Angeles Lakers for Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and 3 number 1 picks that belong to the Los Angeles Lakers. The 4th overall pick in this draft. Also, the 2021 pick, it goes to New Orleans. It is protected top 8 for New Orleans. If it is 9-30, it reverts back to the Los Angeles Lakers. In that case, New Orleans will get a 2022 unprotected pick. And from what I understand, that's the year where a lot of high schools will go directly into the NBA. So there'll be like a double draft there, where you're going to get the high school seniors that'll come in, but also you'll be able to get obviously the one-and-doners that are going to college, and of course college upperclassmen that'll be in that draft. So that'll be a huge draft in 2022, with the Saints possibly getting 2 picks. There is a 2023 swap. 2024 is unprotected. The Pels have the right to defer that pick to 2025. And it looks like quite a haul for the New Orleans Pelicans, even though a lot of people did not want to trade Anthony Davis to the Los Angeles Lakers. I myself were hoping that the Boston Celtics would be in the mix. They dropped out. Obviously, Rich Paul worked his magic, used everything he could to be able to have leverage against the rest of the league, to have them step out of any Anthony Davis trade, saying that he would only sign with the Knicks and the Lakers, and we knew it was the Lakers when he became a free agent. Interesting is, Anthony Davis said he's going to become a free agent after this season. He'll opt out, and then at that point, everyone expects him to re-sign with the Lakers long term. We start off with Oleh Kosel. Your thoughts on the trade?
I think Griffin did really well. You got to go back to what you just mentioned. Boston wasn't going to pony up. A lot of the other teams were not going to put their best assets on the floor. Denver Nuggets were not including Jamal Murray. The Knicks obviously didn't have enough to give, but even they were reportedly hesitant to include Knox, Mitchell Robinson, and their future first-round picks. So Griffin, for him to escape with not only 3 good young players, he escaped with what I think is a bounty of picks. And you've already gone through the list, but people really need to understand it's not just 3 first-round picks. Mm-hmm. The Pelicans control the Lakers, draft compensation for the next 5 to 7 years, and that is huge because, as we've seen, the Lakers have not been in the playoffs in 6 years. There's a good chance that LeBron is eventually going to start hitting a wall. I think we saw kind of this past year where he missed more time than he ever has due to one injury since high school. So he's going to have a decline. We know Anthony Davis cannot carry a team. So LA has had problems building teams.
Yes.
So what David Griffin did is he took a gamble, and he took, I think, a smart gamble. So there's a chance it's really going to pay off. If just 1 or 2 of those picks pan out, Lonzo or Ingram pan out, he did really well for a guy that only wanted one destination, and Griffin had no other good competing offers on the table.
Yeah, it's incredible how he was able to leverage the Lakers without really having anyone to leverage the Lakers against. Your thoughts, David? Break it down for us.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest thing about this is the flexibility. Mm-hmm. If 1 or 2 of the guys really pans out, again, like Oleh said, then that's fantastic. But they're on low-cost contracts, and if they don't, you don't really burn yourself. Mm-hmm. But the flexibility going forward, knowing that you have to have this constant turnover as a smaller market team. You have to have your veterans, but you need a constant supply of young, cheap players coming through. And the Pelicans have given themselves the flexibility to do that, to keep bringing in that talent, decide in a draft whether it's the one that they want to use or not. And they also have enough attractive assets that if they do target a veteran player on another team, those number 1 picks are very attractive to other teams. Also, when you pair them with the ones that they'll have themselves over the course of those seasons.
Guys, let's first of all talk about the picks and the pick swaps, and why is that important for the future of this franchise?
Okay, well, first of all, we know the value of the 2019 4th overall pick. It's high. It's a top 5 draft asset. In the future, you've already alluded to it, Eric, it looks like the Pelicans are shaping up to have 2 first-round picks in the 2022 draft. That is huge, unless, of course, the Lakers happen to hand over a top 8 pick from the year before. Granted, that's probably not going to happen. Anthony Davis, LeBron James, you've got to think they're going to add some kind of competency, some shooters around there. They're going to be probably a playoff team at a minimum. So that pick, don't expect that to transfer over. But that 2022, that is unprotected. And as you mentioned, that's a double draft. The Pelicans are going to have their choice, in the deepest draft that we've seen in years. And then that's just 1 pick. I'm talking about. Then in the future, in the next year, 2023, they have a chance to swap with the Lakers. Odds are, again, if LeBron stays healthy, AD, they're not going to execute that. But say, hey, we've seen AD miss a lot of time. We've seen disappointment due to injury for an entire team for the whole season, ruin a whole season. So it could happen then, so they could flip that pick. And then, of course, you just mentioned the last one, the deferment. They get a choice of having either the 2024 pick. They can take that from the Lakers. If they like the draft, they like where they're sitting, they'll take it. But if they don't, they can gamble on the following year, take a bet. So like I said, they control the Lakers' draft assets for the next 5 to 7 years. So this is going to be a constant funnel of talent. As David already mentioned, we've got all of our future first-round picks, second picks. We've even got some additional assets from the Nico trade, right? So David Griffin's holster is full. When Zion is ready, this is the key. Zion is ready. The team around him is ready. Say Drew stays, Lonzo either develops, or Ingram. Then Griffin can go chase one of these great young stars to pair up, or even a veteran at that point, because it doesn't matter. You don't need the youth. And you can make a championship run.
Yeah, sounds good. Dave, break it down. Break down the pick swaps, the picks, what you like about it.
Well, again, I think the biggest part is about being able to package those guys. As you look forward, as Drew Holiday begins to age, whether or not he stays or goes, you can get a nice return for him as well. And then you're talking about the potential of moving on Solomon Hill and Etuan Moore. If they stay through and you get rid of their cap space, then you have the ability to absorb larger contracts. If you trade them away and you bring in assets to pair with those picks, it just makes the Pelicans, what you're trying to position yourself, I think, if you're the New Orleans Pelicans, and we talked about this before, is you want that Portland, Utah level of consistency where you're winning 45 to 55 games every year. And then when you get it right, you make a run to the conference finals or to the NBA finals. We're not going to be in the NBA finals every year. That's just a fact of life in New Orleans. But you can be a highly competitive team year in and year out and position yourselves for that one big jump, for that one run, identify that guy and go get him. Right now, the Pelicans have never been able to do that because the plan was always patchwork. Now you're looking at the long game, and I think that's what Griffin did with this. LeBron James is going to be 40 years old when his contract runs out. And then you're talking about Anthony Davis and who's the next free agent out there. You're looking around the league, there aren't a lot of superstars right now who at that time will be either available or young enough to help lead a team to the finals. So the Pelicans are really in a good position to start ascending in the Western Conference, if not the entire NBA, by the time the rest of the powers in the West right now, outside of maybe Denver and Utah, everybody else is relatively, and the teams at the top are relatively old, whether it's Houston, whether you're Golden State, all those teams are getting into their 30s, where the Pelicans are building a core that's 24 and under.
Right. All right, I'm going to stay with you for a moment. We're going to take the assets from this trade one at a time, and let's start with Brandon Ingram. What do you like about him? What do you don't like about him? What's the upside? What's the downside?
Well, the first thing you like about Brandon Ingram is his length. You look at a guy who's 6'9", who can handle the ball some. The Lakers wanted him to take time and play at the point guard position. That just didn't really pan out, especially once LeBron came on. It didn't make sense for him to be a primary ball handler. But again, he's very effective inside the restricted area. He can score around the rim. He's a solid mid-range jump shooter. He gets to the free throw line. If he's at his peak potential defensively with that wingspan that he has, he can be a disruptive force there. The concern you have is his outside shot. He's never made 1 3 a game in his career. And he's also in the final year of his deal. That's another concern. You have to make a decision roughly by the time the trade deadline comes as to whether or not you're going to extend him or move him. So it's a really short window of evaluation for a guy who has a lot of talent, but are you willing to spend big money if he doesn't develop quickly enough in his 4th year?
Qualifying offer next year, right?
Yeah.
Right? So, again, you really have him for 2 if you'd like.
If you'd like.
But, yes, you have to make a decision. But he will be a restricted free agent, so you have the ability to hold on to him for another 4 years if he resigns.
Yes.
Right.
One thing you've got to mention, though, too, also, is his injury concern.
Right. Talk about it, because that's what a lot of people point to. That was the problem at the trade deadline when they were trying to make this deal the last time. He's been injured, and, of course, the problem with the blood clot. Talk about it.
Yeah, that blood clot required surgery. The thoracic outlet syndrome, I think he was diagnosed with. Thrombosis, right. So he basically did not have the similar thing that what Chris Bosh had, right, surgery for. But it is still a concern that may redevelop in his shoulder area, I've heard. Granted, we have heard nothing but positive reports. He's 100% healthy. In fact, ahead of schedule. They do not think it'll come back, but yet, this is a very rare injury. We have not seen basketball players sustain it, so it's still up in the air. It's kind of a toss-up.
Well, I read they took a portion of his rib out that was causing the friction. They believe that will solve the issue.
Right, they believe, but see, that's the key, I think, in all this. It's just a medical opinion on how to solve a problem that they're not certain that it did. So we're going to find out.
The one thing that they have said is that they don't believe there's an underlying blood condition that would resume the clotting. Right. So like that's good, and that's what Chris Bosh's issue was, is that the recurrence having to use the blood thinners would not have made it possible for him to play. That part, at least, is not a concern for Ingram. Could it resurface? Yes, it absolutely could. But I don't think it's as big a concern as it was before we knew, before the surgery happened.
Right. Break him down as a player.
I like him. I think that he's, his reach is incredible for his size and his position at the small forward position. The Pelicans have always dreamed of having just a 6'7", 6'8" guy. Well, he's 6'10". He's bordering almost Kevin Durant height, plus reach. The hope is he can guard positions 1 through 4. And supposedly we have seen that. There's been times where I've watched some Lakers footage, and when he's revving, and that dog is in him, he's got a little bit to it. That's what I kind of like. That's what I'm hoping that the Pelicans coaching staff will be able to, coax out of him. But anyways, he's a dominant scorer now. He's very good in isolation. He was developing into a playmaker right before his injury. I've already mentioned his defensive ability. He just needs to get bigger, honestly, Eric. He needs to get a little bit stronger because he's very slight of frame.
Yes.
He's not going to provide the rebounding you kind of want, perhaps maybe potentially guarding the rim at times because it can't all be on Zion. Can't be, obviously, Drew and Lonzo.
True.
So you need him to kind of be more of a two-way player. I think that's what the coaching staff is going to try and get out of him. But I think the ability is there because he's got, he was born with good genetics, and he's got that length. And he, like I said, he already knows how to play the game. But can he play it better?
And you think one other thing is too. You think about him in transition, a 6'9" guy who can 6'9", 6'10", who can run.
Yes.
And you talk about lead passes. You got Zion on one wing, and you've got Brandon Ingram on the other, filling those lanes. Those are great lob targets for Lonzo Ball, who we'll probably talk about in just a second.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's athletically, you're really intrigued by Ingram at his peak.
Yeah. Talk about Lonzo Ball. What do you like? What do you dislike? And then we'll talk about the LeVar Ball after.
I think he's the catch of honestly this trade for the David Griffin and the
why?
front office. It's because simply he can be a cornerstone. When he came into the league, people project him as to be one of the next great point guards for the next 10 to 15 years. His facilitating is that good. His playmaking, his defense is top notch. He's just been, he's 21 years old, but he's already at this elite level in those areas. And what have we learned? Alvin Gentry needs a facilitating point guard. He needs somebody like Rondo, who was in the downside of his career here, and we saw it. But look what he did. Look where he led the Pelicans. That, Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday, sure, but there was a lot of incomplete other parts on that team, yet they made it. They swept the Trailblazers. They made it into the playoffs in the second round, something I've only done one other time. So Alvin Gentry's offense requires a facilitator, and there's none better to gamble on than Lonzo Ball. He's 21. The thing you worry about is his shooting. The downside is the guy shot 41% from the free throw line.
Right.
From the three-point line is about 33%. He just flat out cannot shoot. But, you kind of got to give him a pass just like you do Ingram, Kuzma. He shot 30%. I know he wasn't including the trade, but you look at all the young Lakers, what they endured last year. It was a train wreck. I think their confidences were hurt up and down that roster. And Lonzo,
the offensive strategy was
Lonzo was right there, and he was playing hurt, I heard, throughout the year. Because before his season-ending injury, he had another injury. So he was never truly right.
Yes.
So it's kind of, you can't hold that year against him. You look at what he did in college. You look at what he's projecting to. Look, for instance, his shot. He used to really sling it from the left side, right? In his rookie season, it moved more towards the center last year. The hope is he keeps developing that. If he could just become average, you look at Jason Kidd, right?
Yes.
That's who's my favorite model for him. He came in the league as a terrible shooter, but great point guard, great defender, good size. He's 6'6". Lonzo's 6'6". Kidd was even a little smaller. Good rebounder. So he provides in all these areas. If he can just get that shooting out to average, he's going to be one of the best in that position.
Like Jason Kidd, by the time he left the league, was a deadly three-point shooter. He
Top
developed
five
that.
all time when he retired.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. What do you like about Lonzo? What do you don't like about Lonzo Ball?
Well, yeah, again, like Oleh, you put him at the head of your defense with Drew Holiday, and you have a terrorizing backcourt. You go back to the film that circulated this year. It was one sequence of Lonzo Ball defending all 5 positions on one possession against the Orlando Magic. He has that kind of motor and intensity defensively, and that has to be really attractive to Pelicans fans. Then you combine that, it's not only that he's elite at those things, he's historically elite at the things that he's good at. He's in the company with Magic Johnson, Russell Westbrook, and Jason Kidd in those things that he does well. His free throw shooting at 41%, he was a 66% free throw shooter at college. So for that fall off, that tells you something isn't right, that something is missing there because people don't drop off that dramatically from college. Usually things tend to trend upwards. Again, if he could get his shooting, his regular field goal percentage up over 41%, because Jason Kidd, again, like you talked about, he was a 40% total shooter, and he got his three-point shooting around 36%. If Lonzo can get to those numbers and get his free throw percentage back in the 60s, offensively he becomes so effective because, again, in transition, he moves the ball not only with his dribbling, but he throws it ahead, and he can create, get to the rim. And one of the big things that the Pelicans didn't have last year that Rondo provided was the last-minute drop-off. getting into the paint, seeing that guy coming in that. He has that vision. He has the ability to rebound. He also has the ability to finish above the rim himself. He's very athletic for his position. And I think he's going to get stronger as his body develops. Again, like you said, 21 years old, to have a point guard with those abilities. His shooting numbers really, from his rookie year to his sophomore year, the improvement from two-point range, he was below 25% as a three-point shooter his rookie year. Right. He was below 40% as a two-point shooter his rookie year. So those numbers improved. The free throws are the biggest anomaly in that group. So there has been improvement. I think giving him the keys and saying this is your show will also be a big difference for him. That pressure of not being in Los Angeles where he grew up, where he played college basketball, and not having to have Magic Johnson tout you as the guy who's going to bring Showtime back.
Right.
Here he gets to develop behind the allure of Zion Williamson, behind the love that the fans have for Drew Holiday. He just gets to go out and play basketball. And I think mentally for a 21-year-old to be out of that drama, I think will be good for him as well.
You know, guys, I've said all week long since the trade happened, think CP3 Tyson Chandler. Because, again, one thing that he'll be able to do, and we know that Zion plays above the rim. We know that Brandon Ingram can play above the rim. It's been difficult to find a guy, that can get the ball to the hoop for these alley-oops, and I think you'll see a lot of that with Lonzo Ball.
I mean, you think about Zion Williamson at 6'7", 285, doing a pin screen, and Lonzo coming off of that. He's going to shake his man, and that's a quick, easy flip over to the rim for Zion to finish. I think it's just, but that defensive impact, I think people really need to focus on that. When he was on the court for the Lakers, they were a top 5 defense, top 7 defense. He goes out, they drop to the low 20s. I mean, that's that kind of impact on a team that was abysmal last year defensively. And when the Pelicans made their playoff run, top 5 defense, 16th offense. Right. That's what people forget. That defensive impact is huge. Right.
Guys, a lot of people don't dislike Lonzo Ball, but they, again, didn't want him coming to New Orleans simply because of LeVar Ball taking all the oxygen out of the room. Now, there have been reports that, unfortunately, his wife had a stroke. She's recovering, that he will not be moving to New Orleans. He's going to stay in Los Angeles. Maybe that helps, but it is the age of social media. You don't necessarily have to be here to make an impact. What are your thoughts on LeVar Ball? A distraction? Can they move past it? Can the organization say, hey, we're not going to allow you to do what you did with the Lakers here in New Orleans?
I'm sure that he will have a sit-down with David Griffin, the front office, Alvin Gentry. But I think it's also important to point out that he's already gotten off to the right foot here in New Orleans. As soon as that trade was announced, LeVar Ball was all about it. He, in fact, called this as a landing place for Lonzo, one of the best teams he could have ended up on. So he's already saying the right things. And we've got to consider last year, despite all that dysfunction in L.A., he was actually quite quiet. Once Luke Walton was fired, you didn't really hear much out of LeVar anymore. So I think he's changing a little bit. I think also Lonzo is getting a little bit more mature, so maybe he's letting off a little bit. But either way, I'm not worried about LeVar. I don't think New Orleans needs to be worried about LeVar. The only time you ever have to worry about a person like him being a disruption is when there's problems within your own organization, the front office. And we have been nothing but reassured these last 2 months with all the hires, with all the, the needle is pointing straight up for what Gail Benson is envisioning and has already, we've seen a lot of it come to fruition. So LeVar, he's not even going to be a distraction, I don't think.
Well, we could always tell him it snows in New Orleans, so again, maybe that'll keep him away. Your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, his interests are in Los Angeles. He still has his youngest son who's about to go over to Australia.
Exactly.
So his focus will be a lot on that. He's not going to let his 17-year-old go off to Australia by himself.
Yes.
His attention will primarily be there and with his business interests in Los Angeles. I view LeVar as primarily a carnival barker. He took on the role of bad guy, and he promoted his son to the point where, hey, everybody knew Lonzo Ball. Everyone. And he got his value up to be the number 2 pick in a draft. So I think, he's a lot more in the lines to me of Richard Williams or Earl Woods, where you say a lot of hyperbole. You say things that your kid probably wouldn't want you to say, but you're drawing the heat. You're drawing the fire. Whereas your kid is left alone a little bit more. And I think you haven't seen people targeting Lonzo, the individual, because of what LeVar is. And to be quite frank, there have been player parents for the Pelicans who were more disruptive behind the scenes than LeVar could ever be on camera.
Let's throw it out there because again, now it's coming out, okay? That Anthony Davis's father was constantly again in the locker room, going after Dell Demps, going after Alvin Gentry. We heard none of this here in New Orleans when that was going on, and I've had more than one person confirm that for me this week.
Yeah, it's one of those. I mean, that's the difference between New Orleans, I think, and other media markets. We take some care of our players. Because we do view it as a community.
Because I know that locker room back there. I've been back there. It's not going to be hard to hear someone screaming at either Demps or Gentry in their office because the media is right down the hallway.
I mean, there were reports as far as banishment from the arena for a good time. Physically moving towards Monty Williams, towards making runs at Dell Demps. I mean, there have been a lot of reports, and then of course you saw the interference in saying my son won't go to Boston. Yes. You saw the interference in a number of other ways, and I just think that he was protected. We protected Anthony Davis because of the fear. There was a lot of fear that if you pissed him, he would move on. Right. But I think that, again, LeVar has not done those types of things behind the scenes. And I think that Alvin's seen enough and been around enough that you won't be walking into his locker room.
All right. You think LeVar will be an issue?
No. As I've just said, I don't think he's going to be able to influence this locker room, this front office, the players on this roster. So if he can't do any of those, all he can do is just talk to the media, pretty much as a third person. Right. So we're going to see him in L.A., still, Colin Cowherd's show, you name it, especially if there's a losing streak.
He got banned from ESPN now.
Did he?
He got banned today from ESPN.
Yeah. Well, they'll probably lift that ban in a month because he's good money, right? Publicity. But
he's controversial.
But honestly, you don't have to worry about him. On top of him not physically being here a lot, and like David said, his son is in Australia. He's got a wife he's got to tend to, business interests in L.A. He's not going to be here. So if he's not physically here, he can only do so much. All you got to do is tune it out.
Yep, no doubt. All right, tell me about Josh Hart. I like Josh Hart.
He's an underrated player.
I think he's underrated, very much underrated. Your thoughts?
He's a good 3-and-D shooter on the wing. I mean, he can't really cover 1 through 3 because he doesn't have quite the size you want to see at 6'5". But you know what? He's tenacious. I feel like he's a better Each-One more. He may not have the developed game like the floater yet like Each-One, but I think he's more dependable, and I definitely think he's a better defender. So Josh Hart's going to surprise people. I foresee him dropping right into maybe a six-man type of role, and if he's hot that game, he's going to be in that finishing lineup. So, I know he had a little bit of a down year last year. What did he drop down to? About 36% from three-point range. But coming out of college, he was around 40%. His rookie season, he was outstanding. And like I said, there's a certain build that's going on here with David Griffin. This mentality wants these good quality human beings who give 110% on the court, right? If you want to know who I'm talking about, just picture the Los Angeles Clippers this past year. But he wants to build his own collection here, and Josh Hart embodies that. So I think he's going to be a hit with the fans. Hey, on social media, what did he do immediately after the trade was announced? Flipped his Twitter account, Instagram, talk about how excited he is, and he's already been interacting with New Orleans fans. We've never had that happen with a basketball player,
really. We love to be loved here, and again, immediately he showed the love, and he got it right back. Your thoughts on Josh Hart?
The thing I really like about him is his pedigree. Comes from Villanova, a very solid program, won a national championship. He's a little bit older than the other two guys. Still on, we still have 2 years to see what he can do. His physicality at 6'5", he's a strong 6'5". He may not be as long as some other guys, but I think physically he brings more to the table than the backup twos that we've had. He's, as far as Frank Jackson, Each-One Moore, and Ian Clark, he's bigger and stronger than all of those guys. As effective a shooter, I think, when he's healthy. Last year, he was nicked up. And that's the thing with a lot of these guys. They were nicked up playing in an offense that really didn't suit them. I think, they didn't have the motion base that they probably needed. So I think Alvin's offense will unlock a lot of things for these guys. And like I said, he's a solid two-way guy. He can defend his position, possibly multiple positions. And I think he's a mature enough player that he brings the steady quality to the locker room when you're trying to develop some very young guys.
Okay, guys. Boston fell out of the deal. They weren't willing to package Jason Tatum with other assets to send to New Orleans. There were rumors that Jason Tatum was off the table. The Memphis pick, that will be a lottery pick in 2 years, was supposedly off the table. At that point, you don't even deal with the Celtics. the Lakers really became the lone team. A lot of credit to David Griffin in terms of using whatever leverage he had to stare Rob Pelinka down and to get the deal he got. All these kids are in their early 20s. They got a couple years of experience in the NBA. You have their rights going forward as restricted free agents, so they could be here for another 6 to 7 years if that's the core you want to build around. If you find that, again, these are the players that can function with Zion Williamson. But there's a school of thought out there that says, hey, Demps should have taken the deal at the trading deadline. Now, there's another set of folks that are talking about the quote-unquote butterfly effect. And ultimately, if you take the deal at the trade deadline, you're not getting Zion and you're not getting the 4th overall pick because the Lakers are better and the Pelicans are better. And ultimately, both are making the playoffs, or you're getting a late lottery pick and you're not in the position you are in now. I'll take you first, Ollie. First of all, do you buy into the butterfly effect? And what was the better deal, the one at the deadline or the one that was negotiated by David Griffin?
I think you have to buy into the way everything has transpired, right? Okay. If you help the Lakers before the trade deadline, Anthony Davis is on that team, they're probably making the playoffs, regardless of LeBron's injury. So suddenly their first-round pick is not going to be a lottery pick, and it's certainly not going to end up in the top 4 or at the 4th position.
Sure.
So suddenly that asset is gone. And then you've got to look at their future assets, right? Suddenly they're going to be that much better. Maybe they can get a jump start on free agency. Their better planning can be done. Because if you remember, they were willing to offer, I think, maybe an additional player like Kyle Kuzma to this deal, but I don't think that draft compensation was nearly going to match this. So in the long run,
Zubac was in that deal as well.
That's right. I forgot Zubac, and of course some filler. They had Stevenson coming back, somebody like that.
They had Rondo, expiring contracts, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was also mentioned in that deal.
Right.
They were between 3 and 5 number 1 picks, but again, that was conjecture by the media at the end, where again there was said that Magic was throwing anything to try to get the deal done. Whether those, you can only take a pick every other year on a first-round pick. So then you're talking about, do you have the pick swaps? Is that part of it? So again, there's a buy-in here with anybody that says, the deal may have been on paper a little bit better, but when you look at it now, based on what has transpired, this is probably the better deal. You agree with that?
Absolutely. And then one thing you've also got to consider here in all this is you're going to then allow Dell Demps to make a trade. Right. You're going to allow him to make a deal before you could have let other teams like Boston Celtics. Let's say Boston's season doesn't go in the dumps. They make their playoffs, they make a run. Kyrie Irving decides to stay. I guarantee you Danny Ainge is trading for Anthony Davis. It just happened to work out that way. Either way, you had to wait. You've got to give yourself the most odds of landing the best possible package, and the way you do it, by having the most teams involved. You couldn't do that at the trade deadline.
Right. And I'll add another point before we go to David. The other part of this is, if you let Demps make the deal, do you really have enough ammo to lure a David Griffin to the table to be your next general manager? And I've said all along, the reason why you don't let Demps make the deal is simple. That is for the next general manager to be able to trade Anthony Davis, because he's going to have to live with whoever is brought in for Anthony Davis. Your thoughts on the trade, your thoughts on the original trade, the trade that was offered.
The original trade, it was fine. But I don't think it would have set the Pelicans up for long-term success, because a lot of those guys that you would have gotten would have left immediately. They're guys who didn't want to stay and were overpaid. So cap relief isn't enough in exchange for Anthony Davis.
Because that Solomon Hill contract would have went with Anthony Davis to the Lakers in the first deal.
But you wouldn't have gotten enough player talent, in my mind, to justify.
At
that time it was Lonzo didn't want to come. At that time it was very different. And then you think about now, too, the other dominoes that drop: Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson. The Lakers were very serious about offering Klay Thompson a max deal. Right. Well, that went out the window the day he tore his ACL. Kevin Durant was kind of talked about with the Lakers, but again, his market diminished, so teams were able to pull out. So the Lakers got more desperate, and then all the things that happened with their front office, with the embarrassment of what went on over the last month of the season and into the offseason, they were in a position where it was no longer an option to go after Anthony Davis. It was a necessity. And so you had that to hold on to your cards and get those pick swaps. You never get those pick swaps unless they're desperate. At the time, they thought they had the leverage. The leverage swung back in David Griffin's favor once the regular season ended.
Really quick, 24 to 48 hours before they said yes to the deal, guess what? David Griffin didn't like what he was hearing. So what that tells me is that they did not have near this draft compensation on the table. You've got to think almost that Rob Pelinka said, oh, I've got to do this. This is my job's on the line, my integrity, my everything. So he, I think behind closed doors, he kind of sat down with David Griffin and pushed this all through. Because now what are we seeing? Now we're seeing the Lakers in scramble mode, knowing that they're going to have to somehow fill out their roster. Right. So now they're trying to sell off whatever assets they have left, the Bonga, Mo Wagner, and trying to bring in buy second-round picks. So you can tell the planning wasn't quite there in the deal. So
I would agree with that. Also, again, when you look at the current deal, and back to your point, we understood, again, Kuzma was in the original deal. He's not in this deal. I thought he should have been in the deal. We understand as Jeannie Buss, the owner of the Lakers, did not want to part with Kuzma under no circumstances. He's been kind of the face of the franchise along with LeBron. He's been at all the events, etc. But David Griffin was reported 3 phone calls did not take. Literally, Pelinka's on the phone calling. He's not taking the calls and saying he wants Kuzma. The information that has been out there is that he knew that Kuzma wasn't on the table, but just, again, played the game to its perfection, and at that point the pick swaps came, the leverage came in the part of David Griffin. And if that's the way it went down, it was genius on his part because you played it to the tilt and you got exactly what you wanted, if not more. All right, we come back. We're going to talk a bit about the issue of July 6th or July 30th to be able to consummate this deal. Then we're going to get into the draft, Zion Williamson, and the possibility of who may be coming to New Orleans. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Oleh, the Bird Rights, David Griffin of CrescentCitySports.com and Sports 1280. And I'm your host, Eric Asher. Stick around.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight, Oleh, the Bird Rights, David Grubb of CrescentCitySports.com. I got to say it again, and Sports 1280. We'll tell you a little more about that before we get out of here again today. All right. Here's the first question going into this. We'll talk about the need to get this deal done on July 6th, why that favors the Pelicans, why they may have the leverage now to even get more out of the Lakers if this deal happens on July the 30th. And, of course, there's that $4 million trade kicker for Anthony Davis, which originally I thought was reported that the Pelicans had to cover, but now it's being reported that the Lakers have to cover that, and that's going to go as part of their salary cap with Anthony Davis. Oleh, why don't you take it first? Sure. What's best for the Pelicans? What's best for the Lakers? And why this discrepancy? And why, again, did Rob Pelinka look like he thought this thing out? Because this is really handcuffing the Lakers in terms of going and getting another max player.
The Lakers desperately want David Griffin to wait till the end of July 30th, to have this deal become official. Simply being money. He can get a max free agent slot opened up, have about $32 million available to spend on additional free agents. If this deal is consummated and completed on July 6th, he will not. He will only have about $23 million. And this is including Anthony Davis accepting his $4 million kicker, which I hear he's going to do. He's got a right to it. You know, he agreed to it. So I know Laker fans right now don't like it. But either way,
much for wanting to win, right?
Well, yeah, there's another notch in that belt, I know. But look, for the Pelicans, they do not want to wait. Simply being, it's going to hold up all of their plans. They still need to get through free agency. They still want to get in that number 4 pick, move him. And guess what? Or if they even keep the player, they want him to participate in Summer League.
Yes.
All this stuff is so important. So for the New Orleans Pelicans to say, we'll wait till July 30th, I think there's no choice but for the Lakers to try and give additional compensation. What they have left, I'm not sure that even Griffin would be interested.
Right.
So I'm not expecting it to happen. From everybody I've talked to, July 6th is going to be the date. That's when the deal is going to be done. And the Lakers, unfortunately, are going to be left with less money because Pelinka honestly didn't see this deal. He didn't envision it. That's why I was just mentioning before the break that it seemed like it was a sudden quick to rush. We got to get it done, otherwise we're going to lose out on AD. Well, they didn't think about everything that transpired since. So the deal is not really in their favor. It really favors Griffin. He holds all the cards.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I love it because it also helps hamstring the Lakers in the sense that those picks become better because they won't be able to fill out a roster. They have 5 players on their roster right now, 5 total. So that means you have to fill between 7 and 10 spots, and they're not going to do that with all minimum players. And then you look around the league, and there are a lot of teams entering this offseason with cap space. So veterans are not going to be in a rush to give the Lakers a discount when the league is wide open.
Yes.
We're saying that, at least 6 teams in the West have a chance possibly to get to the conference finals. So if you're in that group, if you're a team that has money and you're a player who's looking for a payday, what is your incentive to sign with the Lakers? Enter that circus of a front office, knowing what's going on there. Again, we've also heard, that players of a high caliber don't really want to play with LeBron because of the circus that's there. So those guys are not coming to LA. And if the less money you provide for them to go out and shop, the less competitive their team is. However, the small degree is, if it shaves 2-3 wins off their record, good for the Pelicans.
And if you're the Pelicans, why would you help the Lakers?
I have no reason.
Especially when you have a chance to be able to get a top 8 pick.
You should say.
Okay, right? And then not only that, that's true, right? But also, again, the opportunity down the line when you own those picks. There should be no reason you could help. Now, if they ended up more first-round picks down the line, is that enticing for the Pelicans to do it at that point? If they say, look, we're going to give you even more future number ones? I don't see anybody on that roster right now, you say, with the exception of Kuzma, who seems to be off-limits, say, okay, we'll make the deal. Okay, if they want to throw Kuzma in the deal, maybe you think twice about it. But other than that, is there anyone else out there? I mean, we talk about Wagner, any of these other guys. No, to me, no.
Yeah.
That's
not the players, but maybe the draft compensation, right? If they give more, because let's face it, I don't think New Orleans is going to be planning on competing next season,
right?
So they're not going to be hustling, trying to get these prime free agent names signed. So therefore, I feel like they could wait. Maybe they can even have a deal with a veteran or two, like a Jared Dudley. Maybe have a trade lined up. That's how it's going to fill up the rest of your space. You kind of know that's happening, so you can be afforded to wait 3 weeks for that to happen.
Right.
If so, take on additional compensation.
Right.
And it depends on what they want to do with the 4. If another team wants that 4 and they're willing to give you better compensation than what the Lakers offer, then you have less incentive to help them at all. Yeah. So, the 4 is really a big part of that, too.
All right, gentlemen, let's talk about how does Griffin want to build around Zion Williamson? Because that's the key here. How does he build? Does he build through the draft? Does he build with a mix of veterans and rookies? And then the question is, I think you almost answered it, is he trying to make the playoffs this season? One of the things that Dell Demps did, one of the big mistakes is, trying to be able to take a shortcut on the process. You've got a young Zion Williamson he's not coming into the league, and he's not going to be Michael Jordan or LeBron James. No matter what, he's going to take some time to develop. Even the great ones do. All rookies do. But you got, again, the Laker core, which has been playing in the NBA for a couple seasons now. You would think they would get appreciably better. You've got the returning guys that you plan on keeping. How does he build around this particular player, Zion Williamson?
I think we've already heard him, first of all, mention the plan, and then we've also seen it in action. What I mean by that is he wants a young star to put around Zion. That's understandable. It's not a one-person league. You've got to also use your assets, which we saw Boston kind of fail to do, and now look at their situation. Their whole treasure trove vanished almost overnight. Sure, they have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, but are they even assured of maybe a 5, 6, 7 seed in the East next year? I don't think so. They've had all their good guys. Kyrie Irving, leaving. Al Horford now has announced that he wants to go out in the open market. So that is not the model to follow. You can't just hoard your picks. So I think Griffin understands that. You always want to incrementally improve your team, however that is. Where Dell Demps falters, he would jump at the first thing. And he never once utilized future picks.
Right.
Outside of Austin Rivers, he didn't keep anybody else. We had Buddy Hield for a couple of months, but that was it. You can't do that. You have to use all available means available to you. And the draft is a big part of it because there's a salary cap. You cannot cut corners around the salary cap. You have to have some cheap talent and you be able to develop that talent within your system. So, long story short, I think that Griffin is honestly going to utilize what draft assets he has. He's going to turn a lot of those into prospects, but he's also going to flip some and get that young star because you need more than just one player. And Drew Holiday is 10 years Zion Sr.
Right.
We can't depend on him for more than 2-3 years, I think. So Zion right now stands alone. You hope Ball or Ingram develop, but you still got to find that third, and I think that's what Griffin's going to do.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think the short term, if they make the playoffs this year, fine. You don't want a culture where you reward losing.
Agreed.
So if they win and slide their way into the playoffs, that's great. I mean, everybody would be happy. But I don't think, again, that's what he's shooting for. You won't see any dramatic deals that happen to pull in veterans who are going to get you over that hump. I think this year what he's going to focus on is, who do I need to fill out this roster who are going to be good veterans in the locker room, who are going to fulfill their roles, who know what they're here to do, not be a star.
Right.
You're looking for a starting center. We know that that's a hole. You're looking for a wing, a veteran wing to come off the bench and provide you either at the 2 or the 3 some consistent shooting and defense. You're looking for a veteran backup point guard most likely. So you know what your holes are. You don't have to go out and get very young. There are a lot of players who can fulfill those spots and do well. So I think that's what Griffin wants to do. He wants to let these guys grow together, but again, have that cycle as they mature, bring in the next group. And hopefully, because they have so many, as our friend David Fisher likes to say, swings at the plate, then that enough of them will hit that you find either that third star through the draft, or you, again, can trade and get that guy.
Let's say there's somebody out there, they haven't watched any college basketball this year. They hear this name Zion Williamson, but they have no idea who he is. Who's Zion Williamson?
I had the privilege of talking to an old friend of mine. His name's Randolph Childress, assistant coach at Wake Forest. And I asked him that. Randolph played with Tim Duncan, who was probably the most college-ready player, pro-ready player to come out of college in the last 20 years. He says Zion leaves him speechless. He's that physically and mentally. He said that's the big thing. Zion is incredibly smart. He understands the game of basketball. He understands spacing. He understands defense. He said he's a better ball handler than we even thought, that he has point guard type skills that you can ask him to break down a defense. So I just think, again, you look at Zion and you hate to compare people because their styles are ultimately different, but there's a lot of Charles Barkley in there as far as undersized and the explosion and power. And then you also look at a guy, similar to Larry Johnson as well, who could put the ball on the ground, score around the rim, a little bit better, but he's a little bit better outside shooter. You want to see Zion develop that, but otherwise, great offensive rebounder. We know exceptional athleticism, and like I said, the ball handling ability, the ability to cover everything from the 2 to the 5. He has the quickest feet that you're going to see out of a big man. That size. I mean, it's incredible how quick his feet are. So he can guard from the 2 to the 5 spot. So you have the ability to switch that versatility. And then his humble nature, he's willing to be coached. He is a superstar without a superstar attitude, but he is a competitor. And so I think that those are things that Pelican fans can expect and really be proud to have on their roster.
Break down Zion for us.
Yeah, and I'm going to allude to more of the mental side and what he brings as a human being. That's something Griffin wants to build a player of his build around, and for the future of New Orleans Pelicans basketball. What Zion does off the court is almost just as impressive on it. I hear that last year he did not do a single interview that didn't involve the Duke's manager. I forget his name, but he was involved, standing right there next to him. Whenever kids ask for autographs, he goes up to him. He said. And there was a story.
You can tell a backstory.
Yeah, there was a story that Anthony Davis supposedly didn't sign an autograph for, obviously Zion Williamson. Well, it came out later that that's not exactly true, but we get the point. Zion was talking about how all the time athletes kind of just walk by kids. Right. He doesn't ever want to be that guy, so that says a lot. So as a person, Zion Williamson is going to be able to bring that culture, I feel like, instantly. I think that's what Griffin's also thinking. There's a lot of players you bring in that are great talents, but you know what? You've got to mold them as people. Zion's already there as a person. And then when you combine with all the skills that he brings, and, I like David's comparison, but I see a lot more of like a Blake Griffin, but he's got that ability to bring up the ball up the court like a Pascal Siakam.
Right.
And he's got a potential to add that three-point shot. So he's got that bulk, size, speed, and to go to that intellect that you were talking about. He can see the game 2 steps ahead, and this shows in his plays. When he was playing in the NCAA tournament, the way he was defending guards, the way he could anticipate cutting a lane, shooting the gap, running past a guard to catch a loose ball. You saw all these things that help you win games, all by a single player. So I know the dunks are great. Him flying up over the rim, blocking a shot, somebody shooting a three-pointer. He can do all those things. That's what usually makes the SportsCenter highlights, but he can do so much more. and those intangibles. I'm telling you, he's one in a lifetime. I truly think we'll be talking about how he's going to set the template for Zion Williamson.
And then the one other thing is that you talk about on a team where he was by far, he's had one of the most efficient college basketball seasons in the history of the game by those metrics. He was very much behind R.J. Barrett for shot attempts. He was a guy who didn't demand his own shot and yet was incredibly effective. He understood his role, but he knew I guarantee he knew he was the best player on that team.
All right, guys, let's shift to the 4th overall pick. The Pelicans has the rights to those picks through the trade with the Los Angeles Lakers. Do they keep the pick? Do they trade the pick first?
I'd like them to trade the pick in this draft. I just don't think this draft is going to produce enough star type talent to take at 4.
Right.
So either I'd like them to trade and move back and get a couple of picks, fulfill some needs, or trade out of this draft for a veteran to fill, as a reserve.
Give me a couple of veterans' names that are realistic for this team. We've heard Miles Turner. We've heard other names out there. You give me some names you think are realistic.
As far as free agents or as a trade?
As a trade.
As a trade, I really would like to see Derek Favors possibly from Utah. I think he would fulfill that role at center, a guy who can shoot from the mid-range, make some threes, and defend really well. I think that's what you need as an interior presence. Starters, Orlando has some potential talent. Maybe if you can package something and get Aaron Gordon out of there, that could be a very interesting front line with Zion Williamson. At the small forward position, we've talked a lot on the podcast about Mikal Bridges out of Phoenix as somebody who has a lot of potential. Maybe a Malik Monk out of Charlotte, again, strong, talented perimeter player. So I think those are the targets. I don't see a lot of point guards that I like necessarily right now as a backup, but I think on the wing and the post there are some good options.
All right, they stay put at 4. They pick. Who do they choose?
Culver. Probably Culver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Culver. Do you think R.J. Barrett falls to 4 or he stays at 3?
No, I think he goes.
Everybody seems to be hot and heavy over Darius Garland right now, which again puts that.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, he's maybe Clutch is doing a really great job of pumping him up,
right?
But he didn't play it all last year, and he was hurt. Right. And I mean, 6'4" guard.
Okay.
I think that he's going to take time. Right. I think he takes more time, and I wouldn't take that kind of project at 4.
Right. They trade back. Let's say they trade back with Atlanta at 8 and 10. Who do they choose?
I think then you're looking at either Jackson Hayes out of Texas, and then maybe Cam Reddish. I like Cam Reddish. Or maybe you get the center from Maryland, Bruno Fernando. Yes, I like him too. I think he can really be effective around the rim.
Same question for you, Ali. First of all, do you think they keep the pick or do they trade the pick?
I think they're definitely going to trade it. I think, like I said, Griffin, before the Anthony Davis trade was even consummated, he talked about wanting a star player back, and he wanted to be able to utilize whatever asset he got in. And ever since then, even Woj has been talking about, Mark Stein, all of them have mentioned it's on the market. All these teams are bidding for it. Now I'm hearing like there's a chance maybe Boston would be interested. And those are the teams I'm kind of looking for. The Chicago, who needs a point guard. Will they trade up? Could we get a package for Lauri Markkanen? He's a big man who can shoot. That is the goal. That's why I know you love Miles Turner. We all love him too.
But it's not realistic.
Chances are it's not realistic. Indiana's looking like they're going to be a serious force in the East. Look how well they did, and they lost Victor Oladipo. Now we're hearing they're likely going to sign Ricky Rubio or some point guard. That's going to be a strong team. Yeah. So you can't let Miles Turner go. But maybe a Lauri Markkanen could be had. Jaylen Brown, I'm looking at potentially maybe Boston trading. Because, look, Kyrie Irving's out the door. If you're Danny Ainge, do you trust Terry Rozier to run your team? Right. I don't think so. So I think that he's willing to give up somebody to put around Tatum and Hayward. He's really putting, all his chips in on Hayward, but I think he's willing to do it. Maybe Brown could be had there. You've already mentioned Gordon. But there's a lot of players. That's what I think David Griffin's looking for, that type of young star. And you're looking at somebody that's not a guard. So that is why I say you have to trade it. Look at who's going to be available, number 4, who's supposed to fall in that range. Garland, as you've mentioned, Kobe White, and, of course, Culver. Pelicans have no need. If they truly believe in Lonzo, and it sounds like they do, Drew Holiday has made the commitment. I know David Griffin and the Pelicans have pretty much already made him, at least temporarily, the face of the franchise. You can't let him go. And you've got Ingram at the 3. So they're full back there in the backcourt. So therefore, you just don't see how the pick of 4 is going to pan out. They're going to be coming off the bench. It's going to be kind of a waste. So you move back. You try and fill in the other holes, needs, which are plenty, as David's already gone through. And David Griffin likes to build up those assets. Keep them up here for when that big name does come.
Right. Let's say they can't make the deal they want. They stay at 4. Who do they grab?
At 4, I think they would go with. I like White personally.
Okay.
I know I like Culver too,
White, yeah.
but I like White. I'm not a believer in Garland. I'm not a believer in R.J. Barrett.
Right.
Too many faults in their game that people are overlooking.
Let's say it's Atlanta. They get 8 and 10. They trade back. You agree with David?
Yeah, it's not fair because he took my
That's
2
okay.
picks that I
It's all
told
right.
you.
It's all right.
I like Cam Reddish.
Reddish?
I think you got to go with height, so that's
Right.
why Hayes is very obvious
Right.
one of the choices there.
Yeah.
But Reddish, I know that Alvin Gentry likes him. We've talked about it, with him during the season.
Mm-hmm.
You want to kind of take a stab there. You kind of want to take a swing for the fences. That's why I'm not enamored with DeAndre Hunter. The guy took kind of a secondary role in the bad Virginia offense. Sure, he's got that length, he's got that ability, but he reminds me too much of Wesley Johnson. I don't like guys with that kind of motor, that lack of aggression coming to the NBA.
We got about 2 minutes left. I want to get to 39 and 57. They do have 2 second-round picks. They hold on to both the picks. They move those picks. Do they stash? What do they do?
Well, I think since they're trading away 4, and I expect at most they'll probably get another additional first-round pick for this year, I think they keep 39. I think you chase, then you're looking at like maybe, let me think. Chuma Okeke,
Okay.
I like him. KZ Okala, we both like him. Or you look at big man. If Ball's not there, you look at maybe like Claxton out of Georgia.
Right.
Maybe the Arkansas center, Daniel Gifford, something like that. That's what you're looking for because the obvious hole is size. I think you need a rim runner. Cheikh Diallo has proven he's not going to be that, even if they re-sign him. Jaleel Okafor can't fill it. So there's some guys to be had, and the reason why you want to go at a center, teams don't value big men anymore today. So value is there in the second round. Mitchell Robinson, good example with the Knicks.
Yep.
They took him at 36 last year.
Right.
Not that long ago, Nikola Jokic, 41st pick.
Yeah, no, there is value in the second round. 39, 57, what do they do with it?
Yeah, I'm a big KZ Okpala guy. I like, again, length and flexibility, guys who can do more than one thing. That's what you take in the second round, people you can develop. People have to remember the Pelicans start their first season with the G League this year. They have their own team, and they've got to stock that with players. So in the second round, you start doing that. You start finding those guys to learn your system, and then when that team moves to Birmingham next season, I think you want to be ready to go. So that starts with those second-round picks. Those are not guys who are going to contribute this season, but they can be contributors in 1 or 2 years down the road.
Good thing, bad thing. I got to go quickly. Gentry gets an extension. He'll be for 2 years coaching the team. Good thing, bad thing.
Good thing. Good relationship with Griffin. He's proven that when he's got the players, he can put out a winner.
Good thing because it's also security. You can't have a coach going in with only 1 year and people speculating as to who the next guy is going to be.
Swin Cash comes in to join the front office. Good thing, bad thing.
Outstanding thing. It just proves that David Griffin's only interested in the biggest and best, brightest minds, and it's a home run hit. We've already seen the reaction around the NBA. So I think it's even been stronger than Trajan Langdon's.
Right. Swin Cash?
I mean, she's completely impressive. Her record speaks for itself. And then her focus, again, will be on player development, which is something that this franchise has needed. People who understand how to make players better. She's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day for her contribution.
Yes or no answer. Bradley Beal trade dead?
Yes.
Yes.
How about Randall opting out? Does he come back to the New Orleans Pelicans?
No way.
No.
No. David Grubb of CrescentCitySports.com and Sports 1280 starting in August with a brand new show that is going to be called
Hard in the Paint with David Grubb.
Beautiful. 8 to 10 a.m. on weekdays. And, of course, Ali Kosel, the Bird Rights, thanks so much for being with us this evening on Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m. Also on Pelican Sports Television, that's 9 p.m. every Friday night. You can catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and the iHeartRadio app. That is weekdays, Monday through Friday. That's 12 to 2 on Sports 1280. Also, don't forget you can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. All the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports can be seen at ericasher.com as well, and you can listen to the show there as well. All right, also want to thank our WLE production staff, Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Alex Chacon. Directing tonight for William Hill is Naila Jones. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Enjoy the draft. We'll be talking all about it next week. Thanks to our guest tonight, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.